Good evening. Happy to have you here. Happy to be here. Happy Wednesday. It's midweek. It's hump day, according to those people who must assign a name to every day of the week. And hump day I think is good. It's about getting over that midweek hump, getting past the oh my god, I'm running behind, or I'll never make it to the end of the week, or all the things that fill our minds midweek. Heidi, hello. Yes, you first. Hello, darling. How are you? I am glad that you are here. I'm glad we're both here. I always love to see you. It makes me happy. Makes me happy. You make me happy, even in person. I think of you and I think of doors. I know that is meaningful to you. It is certainly meaningful to me. I can still remember all the pictures of all the doors that you took and how beautiful they were when we were on a cruise. Mm, yeah, those were fun days. Kat says there should be a prize for being here first. Is that what you're thinking?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Prize.
Yeah,
Prize,
I like
not
that.
Prize.
Prize, not a surprise.
Yeah. Prize. There should be a prize. I don't know what it is yet, but there should be.
Okay, well, there's your job for the evening. Think of a prize. Um, I'm happy you're here too. Good evening, Dana. Glad that you're here. I bet you do still have that photo somewhere. I wish I had a copy of it. It was gorgeous. Gorgeous. Who knew? Oh, well, Jennifer's here, and I'm thrilled about that. But Kirk is now working and works till 9:30, so he won't be joining us. We'll miss him. Tell him that, Jennifer, would you, for me, for all of us, that we miss him. His consciousness is always a gift. What he has to say is always valuable, and we miss him. So there, you can tell him that for me. And for all of us, I'm sure. And meanwhile, Kat's busy trying to think of a prize to give for the person who shows up first on Wednesday. Does this apply to Sunday as well?
No.
No, just Wednesday.
Just Wednesday, because it's very special.
Well, it is very special.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Wednesday matters.
Wednesday matters.
I love to say that. Like it's got some very special meaning. Wednesday matters. And it does. It does, because you are here, because we are here together, and because we are aware that where two or more of us are gathered, there's amped up God stuff going on. Susan, you're here. We missed you too. We missed you. I'm so glad you're back. I hope you were doing something wonderful so that it's an excused absence, because if you're doing something wonderful, it is an excused absence. If you're doing something boring and tedious, and then we have to talk. Okay? Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate that. Lainey's here. Yay! Yay, Wednesday. Yay. Yes. Yes. I'm glad it gets recorded too. And that people can listen in. I get lots of stuff during the week from people that say, I just heard and I can't be there on Wednesday, but now I know I can check in and I can hear what you have to say and what everybody else said. So big brother, little sister, people are watching you. I love that. I love that, and I love that at any time, if you want, you can go back and rehear things. I know sometimes I think, what did I hear? What was that? And it's nice to be able to go back and replay and connect with it. Tina says she gets to this Wednesday and wonders if there's enough wine to get through the week. Oh, there's always enough wine. You might have to run out and get some more, but, there's always enough. There's a backlog of it. I ran into the most interesting thing today. I have a Zen calendar. Kat has a cat calendar. I have a Zen calendar. It's appropriate for both of us. And on today's date, Wednesday, September 30th of the year 2020, it says, maturity begins with the capacity to sense and, in good time and without defensiveness, admit to our own craziness. If we are not regularly deeply embarrassed by who we are, the journey to self-knowledge hasn't begun. Want me to read it again? I kind of want to read it again, so I'm going to. Maturity begins with the capacity to sense and, in good time and without defensiveness, admit to our own craziness. If we are not regularly deeply embarrassed by who we are, the journey to self-knowledge hasn't begun. Elaine de Botton. Think on these things.
She had too much wine.
I think that's very good. I like it. Elaine, A-L-A-I-N, I think it's a man. I haven't looked it up. Elan.
Yeah, Elan.
Maturity begins with the capacity to sense and admit to our own craziness. Aren't there times when you know you're just nuts? Just nuts. Just, over the edge, off the cliff. You're not pushing the envelope. You have jumped over the envelope and you are now free-falling. I love it. And this world kind of tends to make us feel sometimes that way, doesn't it? Like we're just crazy. Or if we're not crazy, everybody else is. And if everybody else is crazy, that makes that normal. And if we're different, then we're crazy. So either way, you're going to get there. The prize could be a dragon, Tina says.
Living or dead?
Oh, no, we don't keep dead dragons around. What are you thinking?
Well,
No, stuffed.
Stuff. Yeah, bitter.
I
word.
don't know.
Bitter.
Jennifer says, I can admit it, but I'm hardly embarrassed these days. Deeply embarrassed. Deeply embarrassed, he says. Deeply embarrassed. The journey to self-knowledge hasn't begun. I think that applies when, in those times when you think you know it all and you suddenly realize how little you know. That may not be crazy, but it's certainly a moment of enlightenment. Cack's book about our dog Tallulah and the raising of a Tallulah was originally called The Enlightened Person's Guide to Raising a Dog. And we changed it about halfway through the book to The Supposedly Enlightened Person's Guide to Raising a Dog. Because you start to realize what you don't know. And what we don't know is many times far greater than what we do. Isn't it? Isn't it? Dana says Gracie is my middle name, and I love it. Yeah, well, compared to what I see out there sometimes, if that's normal, I'd prefer to be crazy. I just would. It's healthier, I think. So here we all go. Anyway, I have much to talk to you about tonight. I ran across something some time ago. I run across things and I, copy them and I shove them in a little file. And periodically I go through that file to see what's up. And I found this thing that I had copied and stuck away and thought, my God, why haven't I used this sooner? I love this. So you're going to hear about it tonight. It is in part the transcript of James Michener on why he feels the way he does about people. And I think it's brilliant. I think it's just transformative and brilliant and to the point and as timely as anything I've ever heard. So, Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist James Michener, who in this interview talks about how the people he met during World War II informed his belief in the brotherhood of mankind, humankind. The language is a little dated. The male pronoun is used quite a bit. But get over that, would you? Because the thought is outstanding. Michener says tolerance and kindness can overcome differences in race, culture, and language. In his own words, I believe that all men are brothers. I really believe that every man on this earth is my brother. He has a soul like mine, the ability to understand friendship, the capacity to create beauty. In all the continents of this world, I have met such men. In the most savage jungles of New Guinea, I have met my brother. And in Tokyo, I have seen him clearly walking before me. In my brother's house, I have lived without fear. Once, in the wildest part of Guadalcanal, I had to spend some days with men who still lived and thought in the old Stone Age. But we got along together fine. In the South Pacific, on remote islands, I have sailed and fished with brown men who were in every respect the same as I. Around the world, I have lived with my brothers, and nothing has kept me from knowing men like myself wherever I went. Language has been no barrier. For once in India, I lived for several days with villagers who didn't know a word of English. I can't remember exactly how we got along, but the fact that I couldn't speak their language was no hindrance. Differences in social custom never kept me from getting to know and like savage Malaysians in the New Hebrides. They ate roast dog and I ate army spam. And if we had wanted to emphasize differences, I am sure each of us could have concluded that the other was nuts. But we stressed similarities. And as long as I could snatch away a navy blanket for them now and then, we had a fine old time with no words spoken. It was in these islands, he says, that I met a beat-up, shameless old Tonkinese woman. She would buy or sell anything. At a time we became fast friends. I used to sit with her, knowing not a word of her curious language, and we talked for hours. She knew only half a dozen of the vilest English obscenities, but she had the most extraordinary love of human beings and the most infectious sense of this world's crazy comedy. She was of my blood, and I wish I could see her now. I believe it was only fortunate experience that enabled me to travel among my brothers and to live with them. Therefore, I do not believe it is my duty to preach to other people, insist that they accept all men as their true and immediate brothers. These things come slow. Sometimes it takes lucky breaks to open our eyes. For example, if I had never known this wonderful old Tonkinese woman, I might not now think of all Chinese as my brothers. I had to learn, as I believe the world will one day learn. Until such time as experience proves to all of us the essential brotherhood of man, I am not going to preach or scream or rant. But if I am tolerant of other men's prejudices, I must insist that they be tolerant of me. To my home in rural Pennsylvania come brown men and yellow men and black men from around the world. In their countries I lived and ate with them. In my country they shall live and eat with me. Until the day I die, my home must be free to receive these travelers. And it never seems so big a home or so much a place of love as when some man from India or Japan or Mexico or Tahiti or Fiji shares it with me. For on those happy days, it reminds me of the wonderful affection I have known throughout the world. I believe that all men are my brothers. I know it when I see them sharing my home. James Michener was the author of numerous bestsellers, including his Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, Tales of the South Pacific, inspired by his travels during his naval service in World War II. And of course, Tales of the South Pacific turned into the movie and Broadway musical, South Pacific, as did many of his stories. Many of his subsequent novels, including Hawaii and Centennial, were based on detailed historical, cultural, and geographical research. Michener's literary career spanned 50 years and 40 books. He was a very generous philanthropist and was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1977. I've read many of his books. They're big. That's the pocketbook size. They're big. Worth every page, every nuance. The man did his research, and the books are accurate and moving. James Michener died in 1997. And the world lost a man who was heart as well as mind centered, an author, a visionary, an agent for positive change, and a great ambassador for the best of humanity. I remember crying. But then I tend to cry when it feels like a great and noble spirit has left our planet. And I grieve not for them because I know they have done their work and are satisfied, but I grieve that we no longer have their presence. I believe he wrote, "All men are my brothers." I really believe that every man on this earth is my brother. And before you decide to challenge him for his nouns and pronouns, his writing tells us that by all men he meant all of humanity, the entire human race, excluding no one, and so, by definition, including women. He was kind but accurate when he wrote about women in his stories. But listen to his words about the Tonkinese woman he encountered. "She was of my blood, and I wish I could see her now. what I hear in these words is that Michener not only wrote and talked, but he listened. He says he used to sit with this woman, knowing not a word of her curious language, and they talked for hours. That takes patience. And a willingness not to be the only or the last or the expert voice, but to truly be in conversation, to communicate. You know, the term communication has evolved from the Latin communis and communicare. There are two Latin words related to the word communication. Communis is a noun which means common, communality or sharing. Similarly, communicare is a verb which is make something common. So, to truly communicate is not to shout at one another or to denigrate one another or even to try to define one another, but rather to communicate means to find that which is common to us, or to share of ourselves so that commonality may be discovered and celebrated. Michener seems to have understood. Would that we all will come to understand. These things come slow, he said. The world will have to learn as I have learned. Clearly, he tells us in this short piece that though he may have been born with this understanding, and I believe we are all born with this understanding, he was also affected by what he learned. And he was open to being re-educated, to seeing the world in a light perhaps other than the one in which he may have been raised. He learned one person, one encounter, one heart, one communication at a time. I found it interesting that while I was rereading this, there was a song that came to mind and kept running through my head. It was written into South Pacific by Matthew Morrison and Paul Zod when it became a musical. It was called You've Got to Be Carefully Taught. I'm sure Dana's already humming it. The lyrics, if you care to hear them, are you've got to be taught to hate and fear. You've got to be taught from year to year. It's got to be drummed in your dear little ear. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught to be afraid of people whose eyes are oddly made and people whose skin is a different shade. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught before it's too late, before you are 6 or 7 or 8, to hate all the people your relatives hate. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be carefully taught. And then, of course, having been carefully taught, you have to, at some point, be re-educated. Or in some strange way, if you are not, your heart begins to harden. Your mind becomes entangled. Darkness descends, and it is though your soul begins to wither. But if we are lucky, if we are open, if we are willing, we discover something priceless. We discover that other, that stranger, that person who perhaps looks different than we do, is not our enemy, is not to be feared. If we are open, if we pay attention, if we communicate, we discover, in Michener's words, he has a soul like mine. The ability to understand friendship, the capacity to create beauty. Michener says he will not rant and preach. He understands that this deep realization must come to us one at a time, and it must be our own. But, he says, if I am tolerant of other men's prejudices, I must insist that they be tolerant of me. We know something. I believe that. And we must apply it. We are all of one divine DNA. We are one race, the human race. And how the history of that race is ultimately recorded will be up to us. In the end, the cry must not be stand back and stand by, but rather take a stand, and stand by your belief in the beauty and the oneness of all of humanity. The world right now is in great need of more souls like James Michener. So I suppose my question to you tonight is, are you willing to be one? Are you? Are you willing to take that stand? Are you willing to speak that prayer? Are you willing to make that claim? Are you? Because it's a great thing. And it shouldn't have to take courage, but I believe it probably does, at least until such time as the world has learned. Michener believed that it would. I believe that it will. But I think we have to stop telling ourselves it's going to take time, because the more often we say that, of course, the more time I think we add to it. Let us claim that for ourselves now and for humanity now. So then, in my little box of things that I copy and save, I found a page of Daily Word from August 8th. And I have paraphrased it. I don't think the author would mind. And so consider this, if you will, a message or a prayer. I like to think of it as a prayer. And if you choose to see it as a prayer, then I invite you to close your eyes for a minute, or soft focus, and just listen. And allow these words, if it is appropriate, to become your own. I am part of an infinite, unlimited circle of spiritual light that is formed in the heart and soul of all humankind, and which illuminates the world. Knowing that I am one with God bolsters my faith and deepens my understanding of the great power and presence within me and within all living beings. During times of quiet contemplation, I touch this timeless truth and feel my mind, body, and soul shimmer with light. This awareness of my divine identity remains with me throughout the day, lifting my mood, invigorating my steps, and opening my heart to everyone I meet in the spirit of recognition, appreciation, friendship, and love. My sacred moments of prayer deepen my awareness of my spiritual connection with all beings. I see each one expressing their divinity uniquely. All humanity lives in my bloodline. All men are my brothers and fathers and sons. All women are my sisters and mothers and daughters. All living people are my children and my parents and my teachers and a part of my soul. This realization lifts me to new heights of spiritual awareness, and I am transformed by the realization of this truth. I am remade in love. And so it is. Michener's books have, over the decades, moved me. This interview did more than that. Much more than that. He thoroughly researched all of his books. I mean, so much so that you were just astounded. The only other fiction writer that I have ever come across that does that to the same extent is Dan Brown, who makes you want to go to the places that he talks about because he describes them so eloquently and talks of their history. Michener made you want to do that, to go to the places that he described. All of his books are just amazing. But his thinking was even more so. Tina says, why do I get the feeling that the little file of things you keep for future reference requires its own U-Haul? It used to. It used to. Um, it was files upon files upon files, but now almost everything's in the computer, so, it fits on a flash drive. Isn't that amazing? There's an amazing piece of information. It all fits on a flash drive. This little tiny stick that holds quantum amounts of information. Yeah, Tina says, my mother taught me to love reading with Michener. Well, yeah. Ah, so I got a bunch of Michener fans. That shouldn't surprise me. That shouldn't surprise me. Can you get a copy of the reading? Yes. Yeah. I'll clean it up a little bit and post it. That's not difficult at all. Can do. Isn't it eloquent? Isn't it just eloquent? How does it make you want to be in the world? Makes me kind of want to climb up on the rooftop, except I don't like heights. Um, and shout, I love you all. Now, let's do something together. Did you watch the debate last night? Did you? I'm probably not going to ask you how you felt about it or what you thought because I know most of you. And I already know. And we don't need to clutter up our thread with that. And we don't want to become one of them, do we? Do we? I was surprised, however, in reading reviews about the debate today that almost universally, the people who were commenting were displeased with both sides. One was a bully and the other one bought into it. We need not to do that. And if all humanity is our sibling, hey, that works, doesn't it? I like that. If all humanity is our sibling, if all men are our brothers and all women are our sisters, or however you would like to put them, whatever relative status you would like to give them, if that's true, then we wouldn't bully anybody. We wouldn't, and we wouldn't have to feel defensive and rise to the bait. There's some maturity for you. Zen. Maturity begins with the capacity to sense and in good time and without defensiveness admit to our own errors, judgment, foibles. I don't know how I really feel about the part that says that if we are not regularly deep embarrassed by who we are, the journey to self-knowledge hasn't begun. I don't think we need to be deeply embarrassed. I think we need to notice. There's a difference. If we find we are saying or doing or being something other than that which we desire to be, do, or say, change it. Change it. We don't need to be embarrassed by it. We learn as we go. It takes time, Michener said. It takes time. And time is one of those things that we certainly have in abundance because it's man invented but God given. Jennifer says, I'm inspired to figure out how to feel that brotherly love about people that I'm finding it hard to see. I got it. There are those people who I'm going to say simply don't know who they are, and so they are not acting as who they are. I mean, if all that there is God and it's all good, according to Emma Curtis Hopkins, then that's true of everyone. But there are people who don't know that, who aren't aware. And so they act out. They act differently than one would expect a godling to act. And I like to think of those people as those for whom extra grace is required. On my part, I mean, they'll get there eventually, probably, maybe, or not, but that isn't my responsibility. My responsibility is to see the God in them. My responsibility is to know that under all of that brouhaha, there's a divine being, and do what I can to bring it forth when I'm communicating with that person, or when I'm communicating about that person. The effort, I think, is to work toward seeing the divine in everyone. Namaste. Namaste. We say that. We say it in yoga at the end of the yoga class. We say it to one another. Sometimes we don't even say it. We just go, but we're thinking namaste. Namaste. The God in me sees and recognizes the God in you, or the divinity if you don't want to use the word God. Namaste. And then sometimes you have to say namaste and keep right on walking. But say it in your heart. It will make you a better person. It is the way to express your divinity. If the divine wanted us to shoot down all the people who don't act divine, don't you think the divine could handle it? We are here to learn. It's a process. And it takes as much time for each one of us as we think it's going to take or believe it's going to take. So if you think it's going to take a long time, pack a snack and bring a Michener book. If you think that it can come fairly quickly, then work on it. I have a cat on my desk. Jasmine, see the pretty people? See the pretty people? Jasmine. Jasmine does not want to look into the camera. What she wants is my iced tea. Can you still block them? Jennifer wants to know. Of course. Of course. I've blocked a lot of people on my phone. Of course. See, here's the deal. You can love them from afar. You can see their divinity from afar or close up, however you choose to do. But you don't have to live with them. You wouldn't run back into a burning building, would you? Hi. I mean, if there's somebody there you loved and you wanted to save, of course you probably would, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that you've gotten yourself out of a burning building, you are safe. Why would you go back in? So if someone has harmed you, has betrayed you, has limited your life in any fashion, you can block them. Of course you can. But even while you're blocking, understand that they are a divine being who just doesn't know it and isn't acting accordingly. Then let it go. Let it go. And Dana brings up my favorite, of course, the highest good and farthest distance. It works. It works. It works. Yeah, Jen, I know you can. I know you can do it. Don't let them eat away at you. That's not productive. But know who they are. A counselor once said to me, I was in counseling with a husband, and he went on and on at some length. And she turned to me and said something the equivalent of, so this is what you're living with. And I said, well, yes. But I know that's not who he really is. And she looked at me incredulously and said, that may not be who he really is, but it's how he's acting right now. Is this what you want to live with? Ooh. So yes, Jennifer, you can block them. Yes, sometimes you have to. For your own safety, for your own good, for your own mental well-being, for the survival of your own spirit, sometimes you have to block them. I block robocalls all the time. All the time. Doesn't mean I hate them. Doesn't even mean I'm judging them as being bad. Just means I don't want to have to deal with
It's a sport.
Cax says, it's a sport. Well, it kind of is, yeah. Can I get you blocked before you give up on me?
Yeah.
And yes, I can. I'm good at it. And highest good and farthest distance also works. Yeah, Tina says protecting ourselves is important always, but especially over the next few months. I think that's probably true. There's going to be a lot of stuff in the air. And, you know, we moved back into the house in the fire zone after the Thomas fire. And we had to buy air filters for every room because you just couldn't have the doors and the windows open because toxic air was coming in. Now we use those same air filters when the guy next door is sanding a wall or just a smoggy day. We still put them on to clear the air. And they work. They clear the toxins out of the air. The toxins have a right to be. It's a natural thing. There was a fire. There's stuff in the air. but I don't have to breathe it. Get my point? So we need like a mental shield, a mental filter that allows us to protect ourselves from toxic people. And I suspect, I'm not going to claim it because, boy, I'd sure like it to be different, but I suspect, especially based on what I saw last night, that there's going to be a lot of toxicity in the air between now and November. Protect yourself from that. Say your prayers. Do what you need to do. God bless you. Do what you need to do to protect yourself from the toxicity. And by all means, do not become part of it. You don't need to join in the fray. Walk away if you have to. Not from your responsibilities, but from the immediate toxicity. Love, peace, and awesomeness to you as well, Susan. Do what you need to do, Jennifer. It is, number one, not only okay, it is paramount that you protect yourself. If you can comment on it, if you can tell the truth in the face of it, good. But don't let it harm you. Don't let it harm you. Protect your spirit, and it will protect you. So, what a night. You guys are awesome. You really are awesome. And I am so happy, honored, privileged to know you. I'm still giggling a little bit over Dana's highest good and farthest distance. It's going to be a journey from here to November. I wish you peace. I wish you understanding. I wish you faith. I would wish you hope, but you know, Ernest Holmes once said that hope was a subtle illusion, that it was better than despair, but not by much, because hope always suggests that you might not get it. It might not happen the right way. So let's erase that one, shall we? Peace, love, joy, understanding, wisdom. I wish you wisdom. And I wish you a serenity of soul that passes understanding and allows you to walk through this world in grace, with strength, and in your power. That would do for now. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much. Thank you. Those of you who share the video, once we close, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. We are getting new people. They don't always pop in and say everything, and they don't always show up while we're live, but we are getting new people, and I know it's because some of you are stirring the pot. So please continue to do that. Just thank you. Thank you for your generous donations. Thank you for your love. Thank you for being here so that I don't have to talk to myself. I look forward to being with you again on Sunday. Each time we meet, we are that much closer to the transformation of ourselves and the planet and the nation. That's a good thing. That's a very good thing. So I wish you a good evening. Have a fabulous rest of your week. Do exciting and wonderful things. Do what you were put here to do. Make God happy. And make yourself happy in the process. It's been a lovely evening. I look forward to it too, Jennifer. I really do. Let's just stick together. Where two or more of us are, we're amping up the power. And this is God's stuff we're working with. So you can't go too far wrong. You are a divine being having a human experience. Remember that. And I'll see you on Sunday.